let's get to some of the inklings that we're getting right now out of the Trump transition. We don't know a ton, and not a lot has come out, but there has been some interesting reporting by our own Ryan Grimm. We can go ahead and put that up there on the screen. Ryan and Murtaza Hussain over at the Drop site are saying, quote, Trump is eyeing Iran hawk Brian Hook as a first foreign policy pick. Brian Hook, for those who don't know, previously served under George W. Bush, and there are inklings that he could be back in over at the State Department. People may remember him because he was kind of a Pompeo Bush type protege who was there for the last 2 years of the Trump presidency, and he was one of those figures who really pushed the killing of Qasem Soleimani. Whether he actually gets picked or not will be an interesting test case as to what it will start to look like for Secretary of State. I cannot reveal a ton. I've asked. Nobody really knows. The two positions where the biggest question marks are right now is over State Department and over Secretary of Defense. And also, to be clear, Hook is not being looked at as the next Secretary of State. It's more like an advisor figure, like the U.S. Special Representative or whatever for Iran. One name I had heard floated for Secretary of State was Bob Lighthizer, which, by the way, I think would be fantastic. Lighthizer was the U.S. Trade Representative under Donald Trump. He negotiated the USMCA. Perhaps, most importantly, is he has a good rapport with the president, and Trump trusts him and likes him, and actually kind of shares some of his philosophy. Lighthizer also never took the Bill Barr resistance route and denounced Donald Trump in public, so he's got good standing. There's a lot of other figures who could get it. One of them is Rick Grinnell, who I think would be an interesting pick too. Grinnell was the U.S. ambassador to Germany under Donald Trump. Grinnell also is a major Trump surrogate and has been in the past. He's from California. He has critically also shares a lot of Trump's view of Europe and of in terms of his foreign policy. Prior to that, he served as, I think he was the UN spokesperson under George W. Bush, but he's had a real ideological 180. We did get some good anti-neocon news. Let's put this up there on the screen. Tom Cotton has reportedly told the Trump team he will not accept any administration role. Let's all also put a pin in this, because people say this until they don't say it, right? Mm-hmm. That's one thing. But I mean, it is kind of curious, because to me, I feel like his dream has always been to be Secretary of State. His major first thing when he became senator was to come into the U.S. Senate and then immediately, remember he had that whole brouhaha with Iran and sent them a letter saying that the U.S. Congress won't abide by the Iran deal. And there was a lot of this is real 2014 deep cut energy. But anyway, the point is that it appears that he wants to stay in the Senate and actually wants to run the Republican conference chair and be maybe number 3 in the Senate GOP. I mean,
Which is also bad, but
yeah, whatever. All right, the number 3 in the Senate GOP is you can do a lot less damage. I mean, he's a young guy. Maybe he doesn't want to give up his career. You can be a lifer in the U.S. Senate, whereas you come in under Secretary of State and Trump fires you by tweet 2 hours later. Like Rex Tillerson when it was literally sitting on the John. Not a great place to be.
I mean, that is true. That if you look at the graveyard of former Trump cabinet level officials, it doesn't. When you think about it in that context, maybe this isn't for me. So anyway, but it's good news. I mean, I think Tom Cotton is a terrifying psycho. So to keep him as far away from the most powerful positions is a good thing. I wanted to get your reaction, Saagar, guys. Put this Zelensky tweet up on the screen. Oh yeah, this was so funny to me.
He's begging.
Man, he understands. He understands the assignment.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
He tweeted.
Yeah.
I had an excellent call with President Donald Trump and congratulated him on his historic landslide victory. His tremendous campaign made this result possible. I praised his family and team for their great work. We agreed to maintain close dialogue and advance our cooperation. Strong and unwavering U.S. leadership is vital for the world and for a just peace. So, Trump has always liked Zelensky.
Yeah, because Zelensky backed him up during his bullshit impeachment.
During his impeachment. Remember the perfect phone call, right? Perfect phone call. So, and Zelensky never trashed him during that, threw him under the bus. They met when Zelensky was here in the U.S. and had a very friendly rapport and whatever. So, Trump is very easily manipulated, and this stuff works.
That is true. Zelensky did make a huge mistake, though, whenever he was here. The last time, and he did meet with Donald Trump, is he said that J.D. Vance was, quote, too radical. And that was obviously a massive mistake that he should have made. And also, I will be remiss if I would not point out that J.D. is the only cabinet person who you cannot fire because he's democratically elected. So he's going to be there, whether you like it or not, inside of the White House. Again, I've said a lot of things. One thing I know about J.D. Vance is he is rock solid on Ukraine, and specifically on ending the war there. Also,
he's not president.
That's true.
He's not president.
No, so let me make the case for and against. So Mike Pompeo and all these other guys, these are Ukraine, fanatics. These are people who they would love nothing more than to declare war on Russia and go to war there. So if Mike Pompeo gets picked at a very prominent position, that's a problem.
Yeah.
There are previous people like Rob O'Brien. I'm not 100% where he stands. He's former national security advisor. That's an open question mark. Another big signal for me is, where does Elbridge Colby stand up? So Bridge Colby, he's been here on the show talking about Taiwan, good friend and somebody I so deeply, deeply respect. This is somebody who has been absolutely rock solid on the Ukraine question. And if he gets a big position inside the White House, maybe on a critical desk of the National Security Council, that's one direction where things could go. Another big signal will be from the CIA and the rest of the apparatus in the intel community. So you've got people like Kash Patel. A lot of people may not know who Kash Patel is, unless you watch like War Room or something like that. But he was a real diehard Trump figure inside of the admin last time around, who led the charge on declassification. The point, though, is that on Ukraine, at least as far as I understand it, he is somebody who's very skeptical of the neoconservative worldview and on that position. The other problem, though, is that the people like Brian Hook and Nikki Haley and that entire wing of the party, they're much more pro-Ukraine. And then there's a big question about Donald Trump himself. And there is a reasonable expectation of this. Let's say we could never get Zelensky to play ball on any peace plan. Well, what's the realistic alternative? Kyiv is going to fall, right? Trump, watch what happened in Kabul. You don't want to deal with that shit. The media and everybody, they're going to freak out. They're going to be like, oh my God, this is the worst thing that's ever happened in, modern history or whatever. And so he has a political incentive to make sure that you have a, quote, orderly transition to a peace plan, which is only possible if you can get Putin and Zelensky to play ball. Also, Putin is a wild card here too, because does he even want? He's winning right now. Putin is literally winning right now on the battlefield everywhere. If he keeps this up 5-10 years, he'll probably gobble up 40-50% of Ukraine. He doesn't care how many hundreds of thousands of Russians are killed.
The media is also going to freak out if there is a deal that is struck, because that deal will involve some loss of Ukrainian territory.
Yeah, because they refuse to accept reality. 20-something% of the country is already gone. Hundreds of thousands are dead. In terms of the rest of what's happening in Ukraine, that is anyway, I could go on forever on this question. It will be, in my opinion, the ultimate test for Donald Trump. So last time around, to me, the ultimate test for Trump was on Afghanistan. He ran on pulling out of Afghanistan, and then he appoints all these neocon idiots to his cabinet and to his national security apparatus, and he basically allows himself to get fooled according to the narrative, and or just goes along with it, with this actually Afghan surge of troops in 2017. Landmark speech, because it was really the first time that he actually completely abandoned a major political foreign policy promise. He claims he regrets it, et cetera, but we never actually got out of Afghanistan, even whenever he negotiated a peace deal. So on the Ukraine question, he said, I will have it settled by the time I get into office. Zelensky is going to butter him up as much as possible. Also, people shouldn't forget this. Trump shipped a ton of weapons, advanced weaponry, to Ukraine when he was president, because he wanted to combat the narrative that he was not pro-Russia. Now, has he learned his lesson on that? He escalated the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, people forget Trump much more hawkish vis-a-vis Russia than Obama was.
Yeah, way more. Obama never wanted to send Javelin missiles to Ukraine. He was like, no, I don't think this is in strategic interest. And he was right. The question then is, does Donald Trump revert back to that 2015 strategy? And this is also always the issue with having a guy like Trump in the office. He's very easily manipulated by people who stroke his ego. And, people around him all have differing agendas. One of them is named Kellyanne Conway, who is literally getting paid $50,000 a month from a Ukrainian lobbyist right now. So that's a bit of a problem, I would say, in that regard. So this will be a massive, massive test for Trump on the foreign policy question. And, I was thinking about it too. The last time that a Republican won the popular vote and had a real mandate was 2004. And how did that work out? under George W. Bush. The one thing that can truly sink you for all time and forever is a terrible war. And so I hope that Trump actually listens and doesn't get us involved in any. He says he wants to avoid it, and I actually do believe him. But also, you've got a lot of people around you who would love nothing more than escalate that war, than to have to go to war with Iran.
Well,
and constraining those forces is going to be very, very important.
It's also worth pointing out that many of the Republicans, including Elbridge Colby, who are prominent, like anti-Ukraine, anti-funding of Ukraine, et cetera, their analysis is we need to not be wasting our weapons here because we need to prepare for war with China over Taiwan.
Well, okay, so it's not war with China. He's like, we need to prepare and have deterrence versus Taiwan.
That's not true. We had him on the show. Yeah. I mean, he laid out why he thinks that we should go to war with China over Taiwan.
No. If the question of a Chinese invasion happens, his entire philosophy is that we need to rapidly increase our deterrence in the Asia-Pacific to prevent an eventual war with Taiwan. He believes that we should go to war with Taiwan basically no matter what. But his entire theory is like we need to basically pivot completely to the Asia-Pacific.
I'm just trying to lay out. It's not like it's a uniform anti-war stance. The idea is we should not be wasting our weapons here because we want to be ready to use our weapons vis-a-vis China. So just to lay out the more complete, worldview, foreign policy worldview here, Trump himself, with regard to Iran, I mean, he's been consistently hawkish vis-a-vis Iran. All the energy within the Republican Party, there's very little dissent with regard to, continued escalation and hawkishness and more sanctions and more hostility vis-a-vis Iran. So I don't have any expectation that'll change.
Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that everything's going to be rosy on that front. I have no idea. And if anything, the last time is usually a predictor. So that was a major issue. I would hope this time you have a guy like JD in the White House, but you also, this is critical, Elon is very anti-war. So because Elon is going, or at least even on the Taiwan question, Elon's a real dove.
Got a lot of money invested in China.
Elon's got a ton of money in Taiwan. So in mainland China. So he's very dovish on the Taiwan question. He's also extremely anti-Ukraine funding and has been now for quite some time. You also have Tucker Carlson, who last time around, let's be honest, he was not as influential as I would have liked him to be on the Iran question and on the Syria question too, for escalating there. But this time, I think he might be able to, just because independent media, podcasts and all that, it's having a bigger moment and seen as more important this time. And Tucker and JD are very close friends. And also Tucker I assume, is going to take a much more interest in the transition process this time around. And that is one of those things that he also has been very, very consistent on with respect to Iran. So I am somewhat hopeful. I want to be very realistic about what all this looks like. And, anybody who's expecting some major anti-war, position, like that's not reality. It's a coalition party. Miriam Adelson don't give you $100 million for free. Okay.
Well, Trump has never been anti-war himself.
Yes, but I'm saying, like, in terms of the coalition and who you have to satisfy,
of course.
Paul Singer and Miriam Adelson and Bill Ackman, they did not give you all this money and all the support and all this to not cash in whenever they need to. And you're an idiot if you think that they're not going to. So
correct.
That's very important. All right, well, let's get to the Biden backlash. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.